Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Wadzanai Mercy and this is Inside Out. Today I have a really special guest. I have Tanya.
Hi.
Tanya Ndiyamba. How do we know each other? Where did we meet?
We met in junior school.
We met in junior school, but we actually never used to talk I don't remember us ever talking in junior school. And then high school is when we started to talk. We were in the same competitive house and we would have lunch together every day. Was it for a term or for a year?
I think it was like a year.
It was a whole year, and that's how we got to talk. That's how we got to really know each other. So the main reason why I really wanted you to do this video, Tanya, is because from high school, I remember Tanya being someone who was very to the book. You were very big on science. You wanted the facts before you believed in anything. If Tanya got less than 100%, she would come to lunch crying, begging the teacher to do like a retest, to do another exam. That was Tanya. So I think the journey of seeing you transitioning from someone who was so big on science and facts to seeing you become someone so big on faith, and like faith is all about believing in something you cannot see. So I've been really like intrigued to hear like what that journey was like of letting go of control. Have you let go of control and like believing in God and trusting in God? I am pretty sure whatever you have to say is really gonna help everyone. So we can't wait to hear what you have to say.
First question, how did you meet God?
I met God in the pits of the trenches. That is the best way to explain it. Just started uni, so you make friends quick and y'all get up to like the messiest of things. I realized that I was kind of heading for a road of destruction. School-wise, there was no focus, absolutely nothing. And I was in the deepest of depressions, very suicidal, very broken, and it felt like everything that I had tried to fill what felt like a gaping hole in my heart was not working. One day I just sat there and I was like, fine, let's try this Jesus thing because I have absolutely nothing else to lose. I began on YouTube actually, and I was like, cool, let's find out what he's all about. I think I was watching a Pastor Mike video and he shared his testimony at the end of his sermon, and I was like, wait, is that what the gospel is? I'd always known that Jesus died for me, but I never knew why. That is such an amazing act of love. Like, he loves me. And when you're in a place where you feel unloved, you're like, there's a source that is willing to give that to me. And I was like, okay, let's try this.
When and how did you fall in love with God?
End of 2018 is when I probably got saved. How did I fall in love with him? I guess God showed me what no one else had ever showed me. He showed me what true love was. He showed me what unconditional love was. When I first heard the gospel, I was like, this is a message of nothing but love. It helped me recognize all the fault and flaw within me, all the sin within me, and that I needed regeneration, that I needed new life. I needed to be renewed. He was right there willing to give it to me. And it's like, how can I not love someone who loved me first? So it was kind of like, I'm still falling in love with him every day. That's the goal. Every single day, help me fall deeper in love.
How has your relationship with God progressed over the years?
Before it was just like, oh God, hold me upstairs, And now it's like, oh, I know about God. And it's like this love letter between the pages of Genesis and Revelation, talking about who he is and, just revealing his character and his heart. And I think that has been the greatest thing that's helped me, grow in this relationship with him.
Where are you now with your relationship with God?
Definitely a 10. I'll say a 9, so there's always room for improvement. A 9. I think particularly this last year, I've discovered what it means to be a child of God. I think even after getting saved, I still had a warped perception of who he was. I saw him as like master, and I was like, oh my gosh, if I do something wrong, he will smite me. In the past year, I started to understand what a loving father he is. And when you see God as father, you can now step into the shoes of a child and begin to allow yourself to be loved.
How do you talk to God and how does he talk to you?
I talk to God through prayer, a whole lot of prayer. And sometimes my prayers aren't necessarily, oh, Holy One in the highest of heavens. Sometimes it's me sitting on my bed like, yo, today I had a day. Let's talk about that. And venting, whether that's bringing concerns to him, whether that's thanking him, whatever it is, but having the same way that I would speak to my dad is the way that I speak to God. And how does he talk to me? He speaks to me through dreams, through the Holy Spirit, through people, but most importantly through the Bible. I've never not read the Bible and not been edified by it. Oftentimes, even when people come to me, they're like, I have a word from God for you. It is something as simple as, he just wanted me to remind you he loves you. And for me, that means the world.
What are some of your Christian disciplines and or Christian practices that have helped you develop your relationship with God over the years?
Obviously, prayer is definitely a big one. I think for any relationship, communication is key. We know this from, dating, from relationships with family. Communication is key. And so speaking to God is the most important thing you can do. And the next I would say is reading the Word. You cannot know the character of God without reading the Word of God. Studying it. So not just like reading a 2-minute devotion every morning before you jump into the shower, but sitting there and getting into the Word, allowing it to transform your heart, to actually plant seeds into your heart that will bear fruit. I think the last thing, something that people take for granted, and I used to as well, and that's fellowship. Genuinely being around like-minded believers, having people who pray for you, having people who cover you in prayer is so, so important. Having people you can be like, listen, I am not okay right now, and they can encourage you using godly affirmation. People who can correct and rebuke you when necessary, because sometimes, we act up and we need someone to be like, listen, I love you, so I'm going to tell you about yourself.
What are 3 things that you love about God?
I feel like I can't pick just 3, so I will pick one.
Okay.
And why I pick this one is because it encompasses all of who he is. And I think the thing I love most about God is that he is good. And because he is good, it means that I know his word is true. I know that his word will never return to void, that he'll never lie. Because he is good, I know that he is loving. Because he is good, I know that he is just and he is holy. His goodness encompasses all that he is and is the reason we can believe what he says. So when God says he loves us, we know it's true because he's good. When God says something is not okay for us to do, we know it's not okay because he is good. He is the standard of good. And so ultimately, I'd say that is the greatest thing for me, is loving just how good he is.
What are some challenges you've had with your relationship with God?
Inconsistency. Inconsistency in my prayer life, inconsistency in reading the word, and then that coming in cycles with shame. So it's like, oh, I didn't read my Bible the whole of last week. Now I'm ashamed. He doesn't love me anymore. So like that constant, that was chaos. All of that kind of changed when I started seeing God as Father. And so choosing to read the word every day and choosing to pray every day now becomes an act of loving him back and not necessarily an obligation or ticking off a to-do list. And so that helps me deal with inconsistency. And even on days when, let's say, it's been a busy day and I haven't picked up my Bible that day, it doesn't make him love me any less. So I think the greatest issue I had all in all was not believing that his love was unconditional. Believing I had to earn it, I had to fight for it, or I had to work for it, when that's just not who he is.
What advice would you give to someone who recently became Christian?
The first thing, find a Bible-believing church. When you are still a new believer, it's very easy to be swept up by all kinds of heresy and all kinds of teachings people claim are from the Bible. Having a pastor or a teacher who is so rooted in the word, who can look over you, pray over you, guide you, disciple you, is absolutely necessary. Second thing I would say is it is okay that you don't know the word that much yet, right? That will come with time as you read it more. Doesn't make you any less of a Christian. It is okay that you won't always understand what people speak Christianese. That's completely fine. It's not the requirement for entering heaven. You are already loved, already chosen. You don't have to keep earning or fighting for your salvation. When you're a new believer, the war between your flesh and your spirit is major. There's still a whole lot of things that are being pruned out of you. You're still struggling with certain sins, and that's okay. But being around other believers helps you. Having people who can be like, hey, I'm standing with you. Lastly, be patient with yourself. It's okay if there's something that you're like, yo, I keep coming back to this, or I keep falling here. God knows you're not doing it intentionally. He knows that you are going through a process of sanctification, and it's okay if that takes time. Just keep pressing on. Don't be discouraged. Don't feel ashamed, because God isn't ashamed of you. He loves you nonetheless. Every time you fall, get back up and run to him. Don't run away from him. You can't overcome sin on your own. If you could, we wouldn't need Jesus.
So the last question is a pop question. Do you feel that there is pressure to be and behave and act and speak a certain way because you post as a Christian figure on Instagram?
There were times when, when you feel you're moved and you share something and people are like, wow, this helped me, God bless you. You're like, great. And then you have a moment and let's say you slip up, you fall into sin, or let's say you, get into an argument with someone, you say something that is totally unchristlike. And I feel shame after. That was because I didn't understand that it is not me putting myself out there, it is me putting Jesus out there. It is all about God and not me, right? That's not to say that I should be okay with living in sin, but all of those things should come out of my love for God and not in an attempt to please people. The moment I turn my attention from God to people, I've made an idol out of people. Learning to serve an audience of one. I serve God and God alone. That was definitely a thing that I did struggle with for a while, where I was like, oh my gosh, I tweeted about how I like this Netflix show. People are going to think I'm not saved now. And you have people say stuff like that. I have hobbies and things that aren't necessarily faith-centered, and that's okay.
I have one last question for you.
Go for it.
Have you lost control? To what extent have you lost control? Is it like a 60 to faith and 40 to science? Or how do you balance faith and science?
I don't balance them. One thing I've learned is science actually backs up my faith. I'm a pre-med student, majoring in biomedical science. And I'll be in like a physiology class and I'm learning about the functions of the body. Say I'm learning about, I don't know, the nervous system, right? And I look at the complexity of it and I'm in awe of the hand of God for being able to formulate that. To me, they don't conflict. They coexist, they complement one another. The knowledge only helps me appreciate God more. Even as a doctor, when you understand the complexity of, I don't know, someone's illness and you see them recover, you're like, that is the hand of God because I knew the depths that went, how many things were going wrong. That's the way that I view it. In terms of control, see, that's a work in progress because I like to know things. I am nosy. Ever since I gave my life to Jesus, everything has just gone sideways from what I had planned. Oftentimes, I'll be like, God, this is not making sense. Make it make sense. Like, make it make sense right now. And there's something that I always feel Holy Spirit says to me, and He says, your faith can only be exercised in the face of uncertainty. And I'm like, that's not the answer I wanted, but it's the answer I got. So it's still a struggle, and it's still something God has to be like, yo, relax to me. But I'm just glad He's patient with me because this whole yielding thing is hard. The surrendering thing is hard. Not knowing where your future is gonna go, when you've always had a plan. Like I had a perfect plan, an age-specific plan. But literally from the university that I attend right now, that was never part of my plan. I remember even when I applied for uni, there was one school I really wanted to go to. And I said, if I get into here, no one is telling me anything. That's the one school that rejected me. And I was like, God, why? Why would you do this to me? But seeing where He's placed me now, I would never have met Him if I had gone there. So with each progression and each time something that you didn't understand starts to make sense, you're like, I can trust you. Wow, you've proven yourself again. So it's a gradual process of just like, okay, I'm letting go. I've let that go. All right, I've let that go. And yeah, I'd say that's where I am. So work in progress. Work in progress. And this is so exciting.
This is the first time I'm seeing you since high school.
Yeah.
And the change. You're not the Tanya I knew in high school. You actually look so much happier. You are glowing.
Thank you.
Tanya in high school, guys, was so rigid. Like, you don't know this girl.
I was.
Like, we were friends and all, but like, Tanya was scary, guys.
Everyone saying that you're not the first person.
No, you should go follow Tanya on her Instagram. She's always posting Christian content. Best believe Tanya is that Christian sister that will put you in check. Like, she will call you out all the things you're doing. Tanya also has a YouTube channel. You guys should go check that out, where she talks about how she became Christian and her testimony in depth. So you guys should definitely go check that out. And also Tanya has an organization. Is it an organization, a movement?
It's like a community.
A community.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about that?
It's called Revive. I co-founded it with my friend Safara. And essentially what we do is we notice that in Zim particularly, youth is kind of neglected. Like, we're thrown into the corner and given John 3:16, and no one feeds into the youth spiritually. So we were like, we're tired of complaining about this. And one day God was just kind of like, so do something about it. And we were like, bet. We have Bible study, we have prayer, we have sit-down chats, panel discussions with guest speakers.
Thank you guys for watching. If you made it until the very end, follow Tanya on her Instagram, go subscribe to her